Greetings and salutations, loyal viewers of this channel. Today we have an absolutely special tale that was actually sent directly to me by Jack Pozobic, along with a photo which was very nice of his family. I'm guessing it's their Christmas card. And honestly, the photo of his family, while beautiful, while he has a great family, made me really angry because I'm bitter, I'm jealous, and that's just how I'm like. So I'm gonna wish him a Merry Christmas and send my best regards to his family, but secretly on the inside, what I'm never gonna say publicly is that I'm horribly jealous because his family looks very nice. It's a very beautiful card, and Jack, thank you for the story. Now, today's tale is going to be related to bail reform. I know I talk about bail reform a lot, but we're actually going to put the focus on one of these bail reform groups because apparently they are still bailing out serial offenders, and this time it resulted in the near murder of a waiter in Las Vegas. And what's great about this is that I got the New York Post article that Jack sent me, but I also am going to be bringing back the Las Vegas 8-team investigators with this ridiculous graphic.
Well, is it a get-out-of-jail-free card or a way to make the criminal justice system more fair? One group says freedom shouldn't be for sale, while critics say the movement to get rid of cash bail is putting all of us in danger.
The local news is so cheesy and absurd. I love every second of it. By the way, special thank you, no sponsor for this video, to those of you who signed up over at actualjusticewarrior.com/join. Get early access to the videos and all that stuff. Really appreciate you guys. Best Christmas present of all time, the support that I've got on that website as of late. Now, this actually involves the Bail Project, which is something that is backed by a bunch of A-list celebrities, including the following: Danny Glover, John Legend, and Richard Branson. Now, because of this story, and because of the lawsuit that followed this, and by the way, thankfully this guy survived, so he's going to make a recovery, the Bail Project actually shut down. So long term, this is a good story, even though something horrible happened to this person, and I hope that he receives the compensation that he has deserved, because now we're starting to get into a new era where these organizations that release criminals out on the streets actually have to take responsibility for those actions. On top of that, if you really believe that this was just a rare thing, people reoffending and all of that, and it was worth it because bail is so cruel to put on those sad, sad pores, then why not continue operations? Unless you know that these people are violent, you didn't care about the consequences until those consequences ended up being able to impact you financially. All those celebrities that backed this, all those celebrities that got on board with this, all of a sudden, you're totally fine with it being shut down once your name might get dragged through the mud, once your dollars that you gave over to this organization might actually be taken by the victims of the criminals that you're unleashing on the streets. So in December of 2021 last year, the Bail Project decided that they were going to post a $3,000 bond for a violent repeat offender who was arrested for burglary called Rashawn Gaston-Anderson. And this was, again, in December 2021. 6 days later, Gaston-Anderson shot Chen Yang Wang 11 times in Chinatown, 8 News Now reported. Now, I'm happy to report that the 24-year-old was convicted of attempted robbery and mayhem, and he got deadly weapon enhancements for both of them, and he was sentenced to 7 to 18 years behind bars for the shooting. Now, I'm sure you guys are all aware, based only on the names that I gave, but I will put up the pictures for you so you can see them for yourself, that the victim in this instance was, of course, an Asian male, and, of course, the perpetrator in this instance was a black person. So, we have a black person victimizing an Asian person, sponsored by celebrities and the Bail Project, who decided that this violent repeat offender was just an Aladdin, and the reason he was burglarizing people was because he's such a good person on the inside. He's got a heart of gold. Doesn't he remind you of Aladdin? But he shot this man 11 times. He has scars all over his body. So you would think, based on the fact that this happened, that this guy nearly died and he suffered critical injuries and all these other complications that resulted from this vicious, violent attack, that he would be suing for a ton of money. But guess what? He's really not. He just wants his medical expenses covered. This may be seen as a cash grab by some of you out there in the audience, but if I got shot 11 times, I would be asking for a heck of a lot more money than $15,000, which is what he's asking for. Now, to be clear, it's actually $15K from each and every party that he's suing, which includes the restaurant for a failure to protect him. It includes the actual perpetrator himself. Good luck getting any money out of this guy. He's going up the creek, and he deserves to go up the creek for a long time. Honestly, much longer based on his repeat history and the violent nature of this attack. And it was an attempted murder, and attempted murder is as close to murder as you could possibly get, so I think you should get as close to a life sentence as you could possibly get for it, if not a life sentence. And he's suing the Bail Reform Project. So all he's trying to get is $45K. Again, 11 shots. By the grace of God, it ended up missing all of his vital spots, so he was able to survive this, and he just wants his medical bills covered. He's scarred up all over, but we got to get into the history of this perpetrator who shot him.
Are you sorry?
I'm sorry that anybody has to go through anything like that.
This surveillance video shows Rashawn Anderson the night he shot a Chinatown restaurant worker 11 times while he was out on bail for a previous crime.
Sometimes people have mental breakdowns.
So I know I just said we're going to get into the criminal history, but the local news reporter actually has Rashawn on the phone, and he's talking about how sometimes people have mental breakdowns. So Rashawn, of course, unsurprisingly, is completely incapable of taking any responsibility for his actions. A violent repeat offender says, you know what, I shot that Chinatown worker 11 times, scared him, scarred him, put him in the hospital for months because, you know, sometimes people have mental breakdowns. Don't you think I'm the real victim in this scenario? Don't you think that I'm a swell guy? Well, no, Rashawn, you're not a swell guy. You're absolute scum, and we're going to get into your criminal history so that everybody could see by no way should you have been out at any point to be able to commit this crime. So in 2018, he pled guilty to attempted grand larceny in Las Vegas and was sentenced to 18 months of probation. The following year, he was convicted of a felony burglary in New York, and in 2021, he was convicted of an auto theft in Illinois. So this guy has a repeat history of stealing, not a great guy. And we're going to throw it to the news so you can hear a little bit more of that history.
Prosecutors detail a timeline in court records. In November of 2021, Anderson is arrested for pandering and carrying a concealed weapon. He's released without having to pay bail and told to stay out of trouble.
Now that's absolutely crucial right there, because the pandering is one thing. I mean, he was probably pandering so bad that he was a politician, but the concealed weapon is crucial. We just went over the fact that he was convicted of a bunch of felonies, so he is a felon prohibited possessor carrying a concealed weapon, and he was just released with no bail.
The next day, he's arrested again for burglary and theft.
Now, after skating by, after being cut a break, after being released, despite the fact that he was a felony prohibited possessor carrying a weapon in a concealed manner, so doubly illegal, felony right there, he decided to celebrate that release by committing more crimes as soon as he got out of jail. You might as well have just dropped him back off in jail, because this guy is just going to go out and do it again and do it again and do it again. And this is where the Bail Project got involved.
The Bail Project, a nonprofit, posts $3,000 bond. 6 days later, Anderson opens fire on Wayne.
And again, they just cut to a surveillance video from the day that he did the shooting where he's casually eating chips and all that. And he's talking about how, oh, you know, sometimes people have mental breaks. We got him on the phone. You know, it's just sad. He was just having a low point in his life. I mean, he kept committing crimes over and over again. They finally held him on just $3,000 bond. And of course, the Bail Project steps in, and then he nearly kills somebody because they didn't care to check on who they were bailing out. I mean, the guy's mugshot alone, listen, I know we're not supposed to judge guilt based on somebody's face, but I've seen a lot of videos of people in those mass casualty events and their mugshots, and you can pretty much tell based on face alone in about 85% of cases. This is not a good guy. This is not a winning pick. If I saw his file and I was asked whether or not my nonprofit was going to bail this guy out, I would say, you know, I got to double check on his history. And had they actually done that, they would have found out that this was a violent guy. He was arrested with a gun the day before he committed the crime that you guys ended up bailing him out of. And maybe this isn't somebody that you want to put back out on the streets.
It's an absolute tragedy, and the Bail Project, myself speaking for the Bail Project, found it absolutely shocking.
Cameron Pite from the Bail Project found it absolutely shocking, speaking from the Bail Project. The reason you found it absolutely shocking is because somebody actually reported it. Somebody noticed what you were doing, which was not checking up on these people. This idea that he's going to talk in this somber tone and make it like, oh my God, I can't believe that when we bailed out criminals without checking on their history because we didn't care, because we're a woke organization that thinks bail is like akin to slavery or whatever stupid thing that I actually believe, that violent person that we didn't even care to check up on did something violent. I mean, he already was a felony prohibited possessor with an illegal gun that he wasn't allowed to possess. Had I checked on his history, I might have noticed that he has a propensity to get guns that he's not allowed to possess. So I can't believe he shot somebody. So much shame, so sad. Local news reporter, honestly, just look at my sad face and pretend like what I did was okay and not a horrific example of how the woke left is destroying our society.
In January, we spoke with the Bail Project Regional Director Cameron Pipe.
Did the Bail Project find any red flags to indicate perhaps he wasn't the right candidate to help out?
Every single decision that we make at the Bell Project goes through the same exact thorough review.
Shut your face. Don't say that you go through a thorough review of every single candidate when you didn't even check if he was arrested the day before for an illegal weapon. You didn't even check if he had a propensity for violence or anything like that. You didn't even meet the guy. You didn't look at his file. You didn't investigate him in any great detail. You bailed him out because that's what your organization does, because you have a burn it down mindset when it comes to the criminal justice system. And now that there's some blowback on you, you want to pretend like this came out of nowhere and nobody could have saw this coming, despite the fact that this was a violent repeat offender with a criminal history that goes at least as far back as 2018 and crosses the country. Again, he was arrested the day before what they bailed him out for a different crime, and that crime included possessing an illegal gun, and this guy's gonna pretend like it's so surprising that this guy with an illegal gun shot somebody. What did you think he had it for the day before? Are you not paying attention? Obviously, there was an escalation of behavior.
In September, the victim, Chengyan Wang, filed this lawsuit against the Bail Project for bailing Anderson out despite his criminal record.
So either you looked at the history and your employees are so stupid they couldn't notice the most obvious pattern of behavior that ever existed, couldn't look at his face alone and determine maybe we need some more review, or you ignored it, which honestly just as bad, or what likely actually happened in this case, you didn't bother to look at the history. You were like, oh, it's $3,000. I'm sure it's no big deal. You chucked the money and then somebody got shot 11 times 6 days later. And now all of a sudden you're like, gosh, my heart is broken. If your heart's broken, pay the money. Pay the money to the victim in this case. You had no problem bailing out the criminal. Give the money to the victim. If you're really sad, then say, I'm sorry to the victim, pay his entire medical bills, 100% of them, plus the lost wages, and then we'll say, you're still not even because he's still scarred for life. He was still shot 11 times by somebody you recklessly released on the street.
In September, the victim, Chengyan Wang, filed this lawsuit against the Bail Project for bailing Anderson out despite his criminal record.
Now, by the way, I was actually thinking when I was saying guilt on face alone that he probably had different mugshots and maybe they looked a little bit different, but they just put up 6 mugshots on the screen, and honestly, each and every one of those should have been a giant red flag.
I don't think they care. And truly they don't care because some man nearly lost his life.
Husband and wife Manny and Lilia Ceballos run Aztec bail bonds in Las Vegas.
We've been doing this for 17 years.
They question the Bail Project's tactics while they claim they adhere to guidelines.
We pick and choose who we want to do business with. We just don't bail out habitual problem cases.
So I do like the fact that the local news actually went to bail bondsmen, because these are the actual experts in this field. These are the people who risk their own money when assessing danger, have to actually chase down bail jumpers when they get it wrong. So they would know better than anyone what a violent repeat offender on paper looks like. And in this case, it's so obvious. They're just like, their tactics make no sense. It's absurd what we're looking at, and we don't do this. We would have never bailed this person out because, again, look at the criminal history. Also, this wasn't said by them, but I'm saying it. Look at his mugshots. Guilt on face alone.
The Bail Project says bail shouldn't be a business to begin with and disproportionately affects the low income and people of color.
Are we surprised that that's the Bail Project stance? Are we surprised that that's what they're going with? Obviously, that's what they're going with. They think bail is racist, and they gotta fight racism, because racism is the worst thing ever humanly possible, even when you're talking about something that has nothing to do with racism.
And disproportionately affects the low income and people of color.
It's not the bail system's fault that certain minority groups commit way more crimes than white people. It's not the bail system's fault that they can't afford to pay because they make poor decisions and they're not set up for success in their lives. That is on the individual criminal. And again, what is wild is that they actually have a telephone interview of this criminal, of this violent repeat offender, making the case for why he should have been bailed out. Of course, now we know in hindsight that he shot somebody 11 times 6 days after being bailed out.
I probably wouldn't have been able to co-sign for myself. because I'm not from out here.
Anderson told us he did have the money, but needed a co-signer.
So even in this instance, they weren't helping some poor guy. This guy obviously had the money, because he was always robbing people with the illegal guns that he had. So he just needed somebody to co-sign it, but instead they paid his bond, leaving him enough money to buy that illegal gun and shoot somebody 11 times. And again, the matter-of-fact way that the criminal is speaking in this instance is so absurd. He's like, well, I just needed a co-signer. Obviously, I needed to get out of jail. How else was I going to put 11 bullets into an innocent person?
When we reached out again to the Bail Project in December, Deputy General Counsel Katie Poore did an interview.
We provide free bail assistance and what we call community release with support, which includes rides to and from court notifications, and we attempt to navigate services available in the community based on our client's self-identified needs.
So first of all, Katie Poore obviously has poor judgment. Thank you. I'm here all day. And she's talking about how, we just do more than provide financial assistance and all that. We arrange rides for people to get to court. Question, do you think this guy wanted a ride to court? Or did you think that he wanted out so he could commit a bunch more crimes? The people who are actually involved in the bail system, who actually risk their own money, not these nonprofits that just chuck money at the victims that they perceive, which are the criminals because they have the whole world backwards in their mind, actually determine whether or not they can make sure these people can get to court because their money's on the line. They don't care about it because it's a nonprofit and they're ideologically motivated. Also, they base everything on the self-identified needs of the criminals. So they're quite literally taking directions from the criminals in running this operation. And weirdly, this guy said, don't worry about it. I got it. A+ first class all the way. Thanks for the money, idiots. Oh wait, did I say idiots? Sorry, JK. I'm gonna get to court on my own. No big deal. Thank you for the community organization referrals. I will be taking my talents to Chinatown because there's somebody that I want to put 11 bullets in.
But Anderson, who told us he was previously diagnosed as schizophrenic, claims that didn't happen.
Did they offer you any mental health resources?
No.
So I also love the fact that Anderson is throwing the blame at the organization that bailed him out. He committed this crime. He says, I'm schizophrenic, but they didn't offer me any help. So honestly, when you think about it, it's actually their fault for investing in me. What a bunch of dumb idiots. What a stupid organization. Thanks for the money. I'm a serial repeat offender with apparently mental health issues stacked on top of that, and they didn't even check it out. The prospect of Anderson actually going back against them and testifying against them in a civil court, saying that they didn't do enough for him, actually warms my heart. And other than the fact that the victim in this instance survived and the Bail Project is ceasing operations due to the fact that they're clearly a terrible organization that just made themselves vulnerable to a lawsuit, him doing that would just bring me so much more joy.
Poore refused to answer questions about Anderson's case.
Unfortunately, because of the pending litigation, I'm not able to address that specific case.
She points out innocent until proven guilty, and the conditions of bail are set by a judge.
So, of course, Katie Poore doesn't want to comment on the case, and she's like, innocent until proven guilty. I thought you guys do a thorough review to determine whether or not these people are a danger to society. This guy wasn't arrested a bunch of times. He was convicted a bunch of times. You ignored that. You didn't care about that. And now you're shifting blame to the judge. Poor Katie Poore ain't gonna work out for you. I really hope they get the money. And again, if you care about the victim, pay the money. Pay the money.
50 other defendants with both nonviolent and violent charges have been bailed out by the group in Las Vegas since February of 2021, according to a spokesperson, and 91% of them returned to their court dates.
So they bailed out about 50 different people, and they say 91% of them returned to court. That's almost a 10% failure rate. And again, we're just talking about returning to court. There's a reason why they gave that number rather than the number of people who didn't reoffend while they were out on bail, because you can show up for your court dates, but also be committing crimes in between, and obviously that would reflect poorly on Katie Poore and the Bail Project as a whole. Now look, obviously I'm happy and I'm overjoyed that the Bail Project is getting scrutiny and they're shutting down operations so they can't lead to the victimization of other people. However, we are in a very legally dubious area, a gray area in terms of the law, because is going after the Bail Project, setting this kind of precedent, going to make it so that if you bail anybody out of jail, you somehow take responsibility for them? To me, that would actually be a dangerous precedent, and it wouldn't be worth this victory in the moment right now, because obviously people are responsible for their own actions. Or is this just going to be something that's aimed at these nonprofits that don't have any care or skin in the game in order to attach liability so that way our system can function further? I think those are important questions that we do need to think about before we just laugh at the bail project, before we just laugh at poor old Katie Poor, and before we jump for joy and celebrate their demise. Those are just some thoughts I want to leave you guys with. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you like the video, show me by leaving a like. Subscribe for more content. Follow me on all my social media. Support me via the support links in the description box of this video. This has been me talking about the bail project being shut down. Till next time.